Colleagues, we are live and we're going to start the voting session. If you'll take your seats. And which analyst? We don't have an analyst. Colleagues, we are live and we'd like everybody in your seats, please. Okay. At this time, the Senate Finance Committee is in session and we're here to deal with voting list number 3. Okay. And so I see Nathan has a good number of these bills. You have Senate Bill 54.
First bill today, Senate Bill 54, is a departmental bill that expands the types of projects that may be financed under a clean energy loan program by adding grid resilience projects when installed with energy efficiency projects or renewable energy projects to statute. You have a reprint before you that includes an amendment proposed by the utilities that offers a specific definition of grid resilience projects. MEA has indicated that it considers this a friendly amendment.
Okay, so it's considered a friendly amendment. Do we have any discussion or any motions?
Move favorable.
All right, on the amendment. All right, so Senator Benson was favorable, and was that you, Senator Klossmeyer? Okay, all right.
Evidently. You gotta give up the cigarettes.
Okay,
Move favorable as amended.
all right, we've got a favorable on the bill as amended, and a second.
All in favor, say aye.
All in favor, let's raise our hands. Okay. Any opposed? Raise your hand. Okay. Do you have the count?
Yeah.
Okay. And now,
Very good.
thank you.
The next bill is Senate Bill 83 that requires the PPRP to include an evaluation of the impact of electric power plants on climate change as part of its ongoing research. Separately, the Public Service Commission must consider the maintenance of fair and stable labor standards for affected workers, as well as additional specified climate effects in supervising and regulating public service companies. The PSC may not take...
I'm going to butt in and say we might need to do a little more shouting since people are on Zoom trying to hear what we're explaining. Okay.
Louder.
Kramer, can you up your voice a little bit?
It is hard and we're muzzled. Okay.
The Public Service Commission may not take final action on a certificate of public convenience and necessity without considering the effects of climate change on the project, and for a generation station without considering the impact of the project on greenhouse gas emissions and consistency with the state's emissions goals. Each gas and electric company must annually report certain project wage and benefit information to the PSC, which must provide that information to the General Assembly. A similar bill passed the Finance Committee and the Senate last year.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Senator Hershey.
Yes, Madam Chair, if I could ask that the bill be held. I've been talking with the opposition on some amendments, and I have requested them from the amendments office, but have not gotten them back yet.
Okay, let me say this. We're going to honor what you're asking, and so long as we're on the question of holding bills, and we talked the other day about the rule the committee had in the past of holding for anybody for any reason or for lack of a reason. And I do want to announce, I've been thinking about it, considering all the constraints we're under this year, and we could end up with an aborted session, I won't honor anymore the holds for no reason when we're not ready to move or people haven't asked for an amendment or done anything, because we want to get as much of the people's work done as possible before we end up maybe having a short session. Okay. All right. So, all right, I heard that. All right, Senator Reedy.
Can I ask a question about when you say holds for no reason? What if someone's waiting for an amendment, has had an amendment in drafting, that kind of thing?
I'm going to ask.
I'm not going to ask for any holds today. I'm just curious.
Okay, let me just say this. Whether it's me or it's you or it's anybody, if you're having a problem, you have an amendment drafted, I'm going to ask everybody to do everything as quickly as you can have it done, and let the analysts and me know, or Tammy know, what you're doing. Because literally at any point in time, we could end up in a situation this year when most of the work won't be done, and it's not fair to you, to me, or to anyone, and not to the constituents that we have in all 47 districts. So it means we're going to all have to stay on top of it and consider every day, if we're asking for any special accommodation, to be something that we are taking ourselves seriously, and we don't want to end up with the session maybe being cut short and we can't get the work done. All right, Senator Kramer.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and I do very much appreciate, the thought process here. It's appropriate, but in response to the question that was just raised, instead of this dogs eating my homework story of we don't have it, there is nothing that prohibits a member of this committee from saying or passing out to each of us a copy of what was submitted to the amendment office to give us the opportunity to say, yeah, you know what? Okay, let's take a look at it and discuss it. So then when it does show up and the homework's glued back together, we can quickly get it done because we've seen it and we know for a fact that it exists.
Well,
So
let
I'm
me
just
answer
saying
you. I
that could
think
be.
that's a reasonable request, but let me say this. We could have the amendment office or analysts get back what we've asked for to tell us that there's a structural problem or anything. So I'm just asking everybody to be as reasonable and to think about the fact that we are not in an ordinary time, and that at any point the whole Humpty Dumpty could disappear. And we want to get as much done as possible, which means that we're going to all give up some of our individual latitude while leaving you able to get your amendments and so on. But if you're doing something, let people know what you're doing, or let the analysts know what you're doing as soon as possible. And we're not going to just be as lax or as forgiving. Arbitrary. Maybe that's a better word, as we've been sometimes in the past. Senator
Well,
Bell.
just playing on that same theme, I think the easier thing is, rather than the bill getting on the voting list and then forcing somebody to, quote, hold it, the better argument would be is if you have a pretty decent argument why the bill isn't ready for prime time, maybe make the case. So then the bill never gets on the voting list, and then we don't have a hold situation. I mean, like, if you tell, Smolsky that we have an amendment in bill drafting, he knows who the bill drafters are. He can kind of like do at least a little vetting if it's BS, if it's real, and then we don't even have the hold. At that point, the bill never made it to the list. So anyway,
I like that idea. What do we think, colleagues? Well, the thing is, if you have something that you don't want to end up showing up on the voting list.
Well, if you're working on an amendment for a bill, you bring it to their attention, and then we'll know it shouldn't get on the list to begin with. Then you don't have to have this whole debate about holds.
Right.
What's reasonable, what's not reasonable. I mean, I would think that 90% of the time that would solve the problem,
I
but
think it would. Okay.
Can I weigh in on that for a moment?
Yes.
I think that means we're putting the committee council in a very awkward position where they suddenly now are calling balls and strikes, and they're also going to be the ones who catch the blame when somebody's bill is not showing up, and it's still not showing up, and we had the hearing. I don't think we should be putting that burden on our committee staff. I believe what the chair put forth as is an appropriate policy, particularly under the circumstances that we're dealing with, is perfectly fine. And I think that common courtesy amongst ourselves, at the very least, should not be unexpected, and that we should have common courtesy to approach one another and say, listen, I'm working on an amendment on your bill, just want to give you the heads up, isn't a bad thing. So I think you've already addressed it, Madam Chair, and now the burden's on us to just maybe be a little courteous to one another.
All right,
Just
Senator
one brief
Feldman,
response.
then Senator
Okay,
Biden.
I agree that you don't want to, I agree with your main point about the balls and strike. But that's already happened. I mean, like this getting on the list, I mean, that's already the real world, right? I mean, like decisions are being made in conjunction with discussions with these folks about what made the list today, right? So in the real world,
Well, wait a minute.
just let me just say in the real world, so I think it's a combination. I agree with you. Okay, I think you made a really good point. I think as long as, you use be judicial about, hey, I'm working on an amendment, I think it can be reasonable both with committee counsel and with the members. I think I agree with your point, but I don't see people abusing it, like, putting 30 bills in front, telling these guys they could. I just don't see that happening in the real world. But
Senator Biden, then Senator Hershey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the other day, the bill that I asked to hold, I didn't know that amendment was going on in the bill until I got here. And it was the amendment that caused me to ask to hold the bill so I could talk to the Secretary of Transportation and State Highways and the recyclers. And so I wasn't holding the bill for an amendment, for my amendment. I was holding the bill because an amendment had been put on that I had no idea about. So that's a whole nother issue when we
Well,
come
it
in and we
is a
find these
different
amendments
issue.
sitting on our desk.
And I would just say, we don't want, as we did, and we did for years on this committee, times when I was on this committee and when I was elsewhere and when I came back, we would say people could hold anything at any time for no reason. That's what I'm really trying to get at. We don't have time this year to know that we can get through the entire session. We want to do the people's business. We want to honor everybody's time. And we don't want to simply say when we're at a voting session, we're holding it for no reason. And so, Senator Hershey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to reiterate the same thing, because we've got, I don't know how many bills are on our voting list, but there's 6 of them on my desk that have been amended. So a lot of times, this is the first time we're even seeing these amendments. And they can materially affect the bill in some way or fashion that we don't know about. A lot of times, the analysts will come back and say, hey, we took care of the opposition on the bill, everybody's in agreement, and great, just like the last one, it's a no-brainer, we're all okay. But sometimes these amendments are getting on at the request maybe of the bill sponsor or somebody else, and it can change everything about the bill. So I think
I think you're making a very good point. And what I would say about that is, if we find amendments, and this is our first time seeing the amendments, we should work through those amendments while we're sitting here. I mean, we don't, and look at how much time is being taken up even on the floor. It's significantly more with less output because of the COVID adjustments that are having to be made. I simply don't want us to do anything inadvertently or by design to cause a lesser output than is possible. And so I'm not trying to say vote for something or not vote for something. But so long as we're here, and they're going to take us through the amendments that somebody has had them draft or that they think is necessary for a technical reason in order to put the bill in proper posture. And let's, just while we're here, let's try to get the work done. Senator Jennings.
So I'm going to say something that's probably not popular, but I'm going to say it anyway. You know, if we leave early, we leave early. You know, that's what's going to happen. And, you know, as long as we pass the state budget and these other big bills, the state will move forward and we can come back next year like we did this year. I think a lot of the bills that we're dealing with were passed last year. Those are up front. We're dealing with them. Asking for a one-time hold wasn't, I don't think it's going to break the camel's back on dealing with this stuff. It just, I would much rather work through and make sure you have a good work product that we're passing out than rushing it because we're afraid we're going to get out of here too early.
So
You know,
do
we're cut off from the outside world. You know, I'll give you an example. When we vote and you're doing the hand, the camera's only on you, Madam Chair. The rest of the people can't see how we're voting. They can't hear how we're voting. So
Well, I expect
I'm not
you
trying to play
speak
games
out
here.
when
For instance,
you've
the bill
got
we
a
had last
concern.
week, I had real issues with it. I was trying to work through the weekend. I can't get there, so I don't have the idea that I thought I could. I was asking for a 4-day hold. That was it. And I think with these, it's a courtesy to each of us. We could be a little more cognizant of it and try to work together through some of this stuff. But to say, well, we're not going to hold it because we're going to run out of time and pass it out, I don't want us to pass out bad legislation because we're in a rush.
I don't think anybody does. Remember what the old rule had been, was anybody could hold for any reason with no explanation whatsoever. And that is what I'm saying I'm not willing to go along with under these circumstances. And I'm just being honest about it. There are ways of my holding it by saying it never gets on the voting list. I don't want to play games either. I'm just saying, under these circumstances, everybody in the state of Maryland is under constraints, and people's lives are in jeopardy. Their fortunes are in jeopardy. All of us, our health is in jeopardy. And I'm saying for that one thing, and if all the other committees can get along without saying everybody's got a 1 day or a weekend hold for no reason, and you don't have to say why a bill has been held. I'm simply saying I think under the unusual circumstances this year, we need to skip that and try to move the bills. If there is a reason, to lay the reason out. If you're working on an amendment, we need to know that, yes.
All I want to say is I think at certain times when somebody holds a bill, you only get one hold. If I hold a bill today and that same bill is tomorrow, I can't hold it twice. So there's not a whole lot going on there. Like you just said, you just hold it, you just hold it. And every once in a while you do want to hold it because.
Well, we all have wishes. I'm simply saying I think this is an unusual year. We didn't know that we'd end up in COVID when we started out last year. But look what happened. Some bills that could cause lives, one way or the other. Bills that could cost fortunes, one way or the other. Bills that could impact the budget, one way or the other, are all on the line. And we're not sure how much time we have. And I'm simply saying that one idea, that anybody could hold one for any reason with no explanation, nothing put forward, I think is a bit much, and if most of the rest of the General Assembly can get along with that without doing that, we're going to be reasonable. We want to listen, and we got some really smart people here. We got some experts here on certain issues. When I look at Senator Hershey over there, there's certain things that I wouldn't know what to do if we didn't have his expertise on some particular issues, and everybody brings special, whatever particular things where everybody has some expertise. But the point is just to hold something with no explanation and not to know what is going to happen with it or why or what is happening. So if you've got something and we bring it up on a voting schedule, be willing to explain what you need held and for what reason. Rather than to just ask us just to hold it. Senator Battle, that's all you like.
No, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I didn't know.
Okay, I don't want this to take up all of the air out of the time today. We want to get to the rest of these bills. But I did want to say that.
In that case, Senate Bill 96 is the next bill on the list that we're going to address. And this bill specifies that regulations adopted by the Behavioral Health Administration must require a behavioral health program to establish and implement a safety plan for the safety of individuals served by the program as part of the requirements for a license. Programs may use a plan developed for another purpose to satisfy the bill's requirement. The reprint in front of you reflects an amendment from the sponsor that specifies that an existing emergency plan may also be used to satisfy the bill's requirement. A similar bill passed the Senate unanimously last year.
Okay. Any discussion or any motions? 96. Senator Bottle. Okay, we've got a favorable and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, are you ready for the question? All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. All right. Was that unanimous? Okay, thank you. All right, let's move to the next bill. All right, let's move the bill as amended.
Move the bill as amended. Second.
All right. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. That appears to be unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. All right.
Senate Bill 235 is a departmental bill that expands the purpose of the Major Infrastructure Technology Development Project Fund to require funding of the statewide public safety interoperability radio system. The bill also requires, rather than authorizes, the fund to be used to support the state telecom and computer network. The Secretary of Information Technology determines how to allocate funds between those two programs. There was no opposition.
Okay.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Are we ready for the question? All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. All right, it looks like it's unanimous. Thank you.
Senate Bill 316 indefinitely extends Tier 2 of the RPS beyond the current expiration at the end of 2020. Before you is a reprint that reflects an amendment offered by Vice Chair Feldman that generally decreases the minimum required percentage of energy that must be derived from Tier 1 resources, as well as the minimum required percentage that must be derived from solar energy. And finally, beginning on page 5 of the reprint, altering the compliance fee that certain suppliers must pay for a shortfall from the minimum required percentage of Tier 1 renewable energy that must be derived from solar energy. So essentially, the bill as amended would slow the ramp-up of Tier 1 requirements, including solar energy, which was something that was requested at the hearing by advocates on behalf of the solar industry.
Okay. Is there discussion, or do we have any motion?
Amendment.
All
I'll
right,
move it.
Senator
And let me just,
Feldman has
if I
moved
might
the
just
amendment.
say, this is just an acknowledgement, a recognition of the fact the solar industry really had a problem this year, and we had, we passed the Clean Energy Jobs Act, and I know Senator Hershey, feels vindicated because, it's, and so it's good. We're reflecting a little reality here, and we're making that adjustment. So I think it's a good amendment, and for that reason, I'm going to move the amendment.
Thank you. And Senator Hershey, are you seconding?
Senator Crossman.
I would second to my colleague. I think we had a great filibuster that night, and I might have mentioned these same type of things, that the industry might not be able to keep up with these lofty goals that we had. So I appreciate them backing it down and increasing the ACP if they don't continue to meet their end of the bargain.
Okay, Senator Klostermeyer.
I'm not sure how this affects everything, but did you share this with the hydro people?
Yeah, in fact, the gentleman who, I think, one of the hydro guys who came in to testify in support of your bill then also segued and actually mentioned this amendment as well in support. So
Okay.
does not conflict with your bill. This is,
Just don't be fooling with my bill.
Okay, are we ready for Senator Hayes?
Said, Madam Chair, I think we learned it from Senator Hershey. What is the AGP? A who?
Alternative compliance payment,
Oh, got you. So I got it.
not meet their goals,
Right.
meet
No, I
the
got
goals
it.
of.
Thank you. Appreciate
Senator
it.
Reedy?
I ask my colleague Senator Hershey a question.
Sure.
The ACP, that I'm assuming, based on your enthusiasm, the ACP does not come out. That can't be passed on to ratepayers.
The entire RPS program is passed
It's
on
passed
to
on to
ratepayers.
ratepayers.
So, yes, I mean, it is, but the ACP payment at least is something that forces the advocates of the RPS to meet the requirements that the General Assembly has set out. So if you kept it too low, they would end up just paying the ACPs and not meeting the goals of what the policy is, which isn't a benefit either.
Because we would still be giving them taxpayer money to subsidize them, and they would
It's
then
all-
not be doing
It's
it.
all ratepayer money, about, I think we did $155 million last year of ratepayer subsidies to go forward with this RPS program, and these numbers right now are even very minimal compared to what the goals are going to be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move the amendment.
All right, Senator Feldman moves the amendment. Is there a second?
Hershey seconded.
Senator Hershey seconded. All right, all in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Okay. All opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, the amendment passes. All right, now the bill as amended.
move the bill. Move the bill as amended. There.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Is there anybody opposed? You raise your hand. Okay. All right.
No one's opposed?
All right, the bill passes. Okay, where are we now? Okay, Patrick.
Tammy, if it works for the order, I can take up a bill that needs to be re-referred. Okay. So we have one bill that's been referred to the Finance Committee. It's Senate Bill 280. This is the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority Metro Transit Police Quotas and Police Complaints Board bill. It has not been heard here yet. It's scheduled for later this month. Taking a second look at the bill, it came here originally because it's a transportation bill, involves an interstate compact, but the issues in the bill are more suitable for JPR. So after consultation with council down there, a decision, and the chair and the vice chair, who's the sponsor here, the decision is to re-refer this bill to the JPR committee, and it requires a vote of the committee because too much time has passed.
All right. All in favor by re-referring the bill to JPR, raise your hand. Okay. If there are any opposed, raise your hand. Okay, the bill passes. The referral passes. Thank you very much.
Senate Bill 56 relates to Medicaid and the coverage of telehealth services provided by psychiatrists and psychiatric nurse practitioners. This is a bill that removes a sunset provision. What it would do is it would make permanent requirement that coverage and reimbursement of telehealth services that are appropriately delivered by a psychiatrist and nurse practitioner providing assertive community treatment or mobile treatment services, that be made permanent through the repeal of the sunset provision. There was no opposition to this bill.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? If not, we're ready to vote. If all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. If there are any opposed, raise your hand. Okay, the bill passes.
Okay, the next bill for voting is Senate Bill 149. And this is the bill that relates to Maryland Auto. It makes permanent an exemption from the 2% insurance premium tax for the Maryland Automobile Insurance Fund. There is an amendment that's essentially technical in nature. It would make this exemption permanent. And budget and taxation is secondary on this bill.
All right. Can we get a motion on the technical amendment?
Move the technical amendment. Move the technical amendment.
Okay, we need a second. Okay, who seconded? All right, Senator Augustine seconded. All right, all in favor of the of our support of the technical amendment, please raise your hand. Okay, I think that looks unanimous, but if there are any opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, the amendment carries. Now for the bill as amended, can we, all right, we got a motion from Senator Benson. Can we get a second? Senator Bidle is seconded. Any discussion on the bill, on the motion as amended? Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Looks like that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Senate Bill 170. Senate Bill 170 is the bill that the committee considered at the last voting session. This is the Maryland Department of Transportation departmental bill relating to copper and aluminum items, the bill that addresses issues with theft of copper from lighting facilities at MDOT MDTA property. The question was that MDTA had, the Department of Transportation is in support of an amendment that would strike provisions from the bill that would establish a holding period by junk dealers and scrap metal processors for light copper, heavy copper, or aluminum items.
Yes, Senator Bidle.
I had asked to hold the bill because I wanted to talk with SHA, and I actually talked to the Secretary of Transportation, and they know that this continues to be a problem. They didn't want the bill to be killed by the recyclers, which that was the promise, that they would kill the bill, but they're going to continue to work on the issue over the interim. This is like a first step, so I would withdraw my questions and I'll make a motion to support the amendment.
Okay, so we've got a motion to support the amendment. Do we have a second? Okay, Senator Reedy seconds. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Okay, did you count? All opposed, please raise your hand. All right, but the amendment passes. Okay, now on the bill as amended. Can we get a motion?
Move favorable.
All right, the vice chair moves favorable. Can we get a second? Senator Bidle is seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? I'm moving on the bill now as amended. Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. All right, that looks like it's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, what comes next?
So the next bill is Senate Bill 226. This is a bill that the committee had before it a couple of weeks ago. It's an MIA departmental bill. At the voting session, there were some questions raised about a provision in here. This relates to electronic notices. You'll recall that first the bill authorizes the Insurance Administration to send notices by electronic means. But then there is a provision in here that provides that a person who must send a notice or communication to the Insurance Administration may do so by electronic means. So there was authorization for that to take place, but there was some concern as to whether MIA could require that a consumer, a person, and a consumer specifically, be sent a requirement that they be under to send a notice by electronic means. And so before you is an amendment. I think this amendment was initially requested by Senator Hayes, and the Insurance Administration has looked at it. And so on page 2 of the reprint, what it provides now is that if a person is required to send the commissioner a notice or other communication, and the person is not licensed, certified, or otherwise regulated by the commissioner, meaning like a consumer or an insured, the person may send the notice or other communication by electronic means approved by the commissioner, and the commissioner may not require that person to send the notice or other communication by electronic means. So it makes clear that the Insurance Administration can't require that a consumer send a notice by electronic means. And then there's additional clarifying language that says that the commissioner may require a person who is licensed, certified, or otherwise regulated by the commissioner to send a notice or other communication by electronic means. So for entities who are regulated by the MIA could decide to require that they submit those notices by electronic means, but for consumers or an insureds, they would not be able to do that.
It seems well balanced. All right.
And my thanks to Senator Hayes for looking out for the little people.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
And a second
Okay.
on the amendment.
All right. Everybody raise your hand if you're in favor of the amendment. Okay. All right, that looks like it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Now on the bill as amended.
Move favorable.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion that's before us now? Okay, if not, then let's raise our hands if we're in favor of the amended bill.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. If you not in favor, you want to raise your hand? Okay, the bill is passed.
Okay, if you go to the first page of the voting list again, Senate Bill 103. This is the pet store bill that was held last week. Very quickly, the bill expands the definition of retail pet store to include a broker, which is someone who transfers dogs or cats for resale by another person. It also adds an exemption to the retail pet store that's an establishment at which the animal is sold at the establishment where it was born, and the transaction for the purchase is completed in person. It also repeals language that was added a couple years ago when the bills were coming in that first started to phase out pet stores in Maryland, about that they should work with local shelters. They are, as far as I understand, that language is not needed anymore. You have an amendment in front of you offered by Senator Reedy. And the amendment does two things. One, it specifies, if you go to page 2 of the reprint, it's the retail pet store does not include a physical establishment. It adds physical there. And then I believe the intent of the amendment is to say that this section does not apply to the sale of a dog or cat at a retail pet store. And that shows up later on in the amendment. So if the committee adopts this amendment, it should be drafted in a better fashion. So it doesn't show up until lines under line 27. If you go to A1 Roman numeral 2, that's where it shows up that it would apply to the it brings a retail pet store into this amendment. I believe the intent of the amendment is to say that if the retail pet store receives any animal from a breeder who meets these criteria, then they could sell that dog or cat to the public. So that's his amendment. It provides an exemption for pet stores who receive dogs or cats from certain types of breeders.
Okay, Senator Reedy.
Upon just to further the explanation, basically, currently in law, we don't have anything in the law that requires breeders to really do much of anything to say, other than just say they're a breeder. So if we get rid of these broker pet stores that are trying to do it by appointment. All my amendment's trying to do is say this. If a retail store, a retail pet store, does person-to-person sales, and they can show they've gotten the dog from a breeder that holds a current license with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, hasn't received a citation on a final inspection report for a direct violation within 3 years before the cat or dog was received by the pet store, and if there's a veterinarian certificate of good health issued within 30 days before the sale of the cat or dog, and is provided to the buyer, and the buyer's buying in person, that we could continue to let people go to a retail establishment to personally pick up a dog, not have it mailed to them. The dog would have to come from a reputable breeder, as we can best define it. If we pass this bill as is without an amendment like this, in my community, people can go find dogs and breeders. We got farms. Everybody knows somebody in my county that probably breeds dogs or knows somebody who knows somebody. But, in a lot of communities, it's not very easy to get out to find a reputable breeder. So you're still going to have people, even if we pass this bill, they're going to go online and make these connections. So I don't see why we wouldn't allow these folks to act basically as brokers. It's no different than if I buy a vehicle from somebody to make sure it's reputable rather than having it, shipped to me. So I offer my amendment. I get a sense based on the conversation that it's, the will of this committee to just pass this bill. It's not offered in any sort of malicious way. It's just saying, I don't understand why we can't find a little bit of middle ground here. I'm not for puppy mills or farms where they got 101 Dalmatians in a little room. I mean, that's not what we're talking about here. We're trying to say, hey, they can have a reputable broker business that's based on these principles. So I would move my amendment, Madam Chair.
Did you say something? Okay, all right. Senator Jennings has seconded the amendment. Okay, now Senator Kramer.
Yes, thank you for that, Madam Chair. And as my good friend from Frederick has been saying since he landed ashore here on the Finance Committee, he's new to, did I get it wrong? Was I? Okay, I think that's probably close enough.
Come on.
That pretty much every voting session is, well, I'm new to the committee. And for that reason, I would like to say that the ship that this is doing sailed 3 years ago. We banned the sale of dogs and cats in retail pet stores 3 years ago. So this is old news. The reason it was done, and I don't want to have to go through the myriad of discussion about the fact that the puppy stores are the purveyors of puppy mill pups. They source entirely from the puppy mills, and we heard all of that discussion 3 years ago. That is what prompted the prohibition on the sale of dogs and cats in retail pet stores. This committee voted for it 3 years ago. The reason we went down that path is that for the 3 years prior to that, we actually had put in language into state law that required certain no citations and things of that nature that are part of this amendment, and not one single store in the state complied with that law. A law that this committee passed 5 or 6 years ago. Because of the steadfast refusal of the industry to comply with our law, we came back and said then we have no choice but to prohibit it altogether, and that's exactly what was passed. Now, we still have some stores that are basically thumbing their nose at this legislature, at the state of Maryland, at our state law. And yes, our Attorney General has failed to take action. I don't wear the sheriff's badge. I can't act on it. But I would ask that we resist this amendment, which would turn us back 4 or 5 years in reverse, and let's get serious about talking about the bill before us. So, committee, I would ask that you resist this amendment. It's illogical and does not reflect the will of what this committee has done over the past several years.
Okay. Who else wants to? Senator Reedy, did you have your light on?
Yeah, I did. I just was going to say the ones that I've talked to say that they are complying with these requirements, which are no longer in state law. The only question I would ask, I understand where this is going. I just feel like you got to speak up sometimes and say, hey, is this where, where are people going to get? Where are they going to get animals if they don't live in an area where it's easy to get access to reputable breeders? And how do we know what a reputable breeder is? I voted for the bill that the senator is referring to. I was on the floor. I mean, I heard the explanations, but I certainly didn't sit through the hearings that you all have sat through. And I'm not trying to substitute my judgment for that. I just wanted to speak up and say, do we maybe want to figure out in this economy, in this situation that we're in, if maybe we can find a way to have reputable people act as brokers if we put on some requirements. So with that, I'll stop talking, but that's my amendment.
Okay. Well, if I could butt in, I would just say everybody has the right to put in an amendment. Sometimes when we come new to a committee, we will find that there is a history that we don't know, and you might not have put in this particular amendment had you realized the years of work that the committee had on it. But that is neither here nor there. We've got the amendment, and we've got a second, if I believe is the case. So we need to vote it up or down. So at this time, all in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. Okay, all opposed, raise your hands. Okay, all right, the amendment is lost. Okay. All right, now we need a motion to move the bill. Okay, do we have a second? Okay, it's been seconded. All in favor, please raise your hand. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I want to speak on the bill real quick. Look, I understand why we have this bill, and I support the bill in concept. I've seen puppy mills. I live up north part of my district, touches southern York County, and if you go over into Lancaster County, where the Amish are, they're all over the place. I've seen them, and I don't want them any more than anybody else. My issue with the bill is not all pet shops are buying from puppy mills, and I'll argue that. And I think there needs to be a way for a breeder that, in today's society, you don't want people at your house. That if I'm breeding dogs and I sell one, I don't want somebody to come to my house to buy it, so I want another place to be able to sell it. The senator from Carroll County, he's trying to come up with ideas. And the sponsor of the bill, he said that we passed legislation several years ago, which pretty much was this amendment, but they weren't following the law. Well, why isn't the Attorney General's office investigating it and shutting them down? I worked on the industry came to me last year after this bill passed, and they asked me to put in a bill to look at it. What do you call it? A task, a work. What is it? Task force bill. Couldn't even think of the word. And over the weekend, I talked to him and said, "Is there anything we can do?" Because I'm trying to come up with a way of allowing capitalism to take place where these animals are taken care of. And I can't. And that's why I held the bill last week, because they called me saying, hey, let's see if we can come up with something. And we can't. And I understand how passionate people are about this. In the end, I'm going to support the bill and I will vote for it. But that's my issue is I think there needs to be a way to allow people to be able to sell their dogs or cats through a second or third party. And when people do that, you don't expect them to do it for free. They need to be paid. And the part in here about the transportation, You know, I've bought several dogs from outside the state, and there are companies that they bring them in for you. They have these nice vehicles. I've seen them. So if they can't come in the state, they're not going to go to like Pennsylvania. You're going to meet them in parking lots in Delaware to pick up your dog or cat. We're just pushing the problem outside the state instead of trying to keep it here and regulate it. So I just wanted to speak my mind on that.
Okay.
Very brief. In response to that, I would simply say that this bill does represent exactly what Senator Hershey said he is, Senator Jennings said he is hoping to accomplish. There is going to be no problem for any Maryland resident to go to any kennel anywhere in the state of Maryland, anywhere in the state of Pennsylvania, anywhere in the state of Virginia to buy a cat or dog. That is why you did not have not one small business owner come in and say, we oppose this bill. You didn't have one of the hundreds of kennels that sell dogs and cats here in the state of Maryland come in and say, we oppose this bill. We had the mega brokers who represent the puppy mill industry who sat at that table and lied to this committee about the bill. But not one single, not one mom and pop, or even it's bigger than that, kennel owner came in and said, this is going to put us out of business. This is the answer for the compromise to shut down the puppy millers and allow the responsible breeders that are in Carroll County, and there are quite a few kennels in Carroll County, that will continue to do business tomorrow and every day just as they do now when this bill is passed. Okay. So I'm just simply saying this is that answer. And with that, committee, I thank you. I know you value and appreciate my passion on this issue. And the only reason for that is that I believe in protecting the animals that are dependent on us.
All right, well, we now have the bill before us, because we voted down the amendment. So all in... Yeah, we did get a motion in a second, yeah. So all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Okay, all opposed? Okay, the bill passes. Okay, thank you. And what's next?
The next bill on the second page of your list is Senate Bill 215. This is Maryland Department of Health birth registration, gestational carriers. This bill codifies existing practice by standardizing the protocols in preparation for birth certificates for children born of gestational carriers to whom the children are unrelated. When submitting the information specified in the bill to Vital Records, the Health Department, for preparing birth certificates, the intended parents should include a copy of the court order establishing their parentage. Once this information is received by Vital Records, it is sealed. This is how Vital Records is operating right now, but there's no law specifying that, so this bill was actually, I believe, drafted last year with the assistance of the Department of Health to codify what they're doing now.
Okay.
This bill did pass the Senate last year.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, if not, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, if you're opposed, raise your hand. Okay, the bill passes.
One more thing, or three more things. There's three late submittals for withdrawals. The first one is Senate Bill 217. This is from Senator Sidner, Maryland Personal Information Act. He's withdrawing the bill.
Okay,
Moved, we need a motion. Oh, okay, we want to do them all together, I'm sorry, okay. I thought we were going to do them one at a time. The second bill is from Senator Young. This is Senate Bill 242. Apparently, his crossfile is already dead in the House, so he's requesting that be withdrawn. And the last bill is the one we just talked about from Senator Jennings, Senate Bill 545, which is a task force to study canine breeding facilities.
Okay. All right, can we have a motion? Okay. And- all right, all, okay, all in favor of the unfavorable, please raise your hand. Okay. If you're opposed to the unfavorable, raise your hand. Okay. All right, I think that's it. Okay.
Senator Kramer.
Yes, Senator Crane.
I'm sorry, it's not related to, I just wanted to, it's not on the bill. We're done. Okay, before we parted ways, Madam Chair, if I can implement the Feldman rule and look at the committee council, I would request that the bill that was held today, under the very last, you get that freebie hold, find its way back onto, you indicated we'd be voting Friday, Madam Chair, onto that voting list. As you indicated, time could become short quickly. This bill did pass this committee last year, and I believe passed the floor. Yes, it did last year. So I would simply ask if we could get that back on the list
What's the bill
Friday.
number?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
The bill number?
The bill number is 0083.
Okay, Senator Hayes?
No, I was just hoping before we left, you could remind us of any voting sessions or whatever we had. I wasn't sure.
Remind you of what?
Voting sessions that we have for the rest of this week.
Yes. We are, because it is kind of an irregular week. Yeah, let me take a look.
Friday at 11.
All right, Friday at 11, we'll do about 45 minutes before we go to the floor.
That are on that list.
Wait a minute, Senator Hershey has the floor.
I was just saying to try to prevent some of this, when will we know the bills that are going to be on that voting list?
The preliminary list.
We have to put them on, they'll be online tomorrow. So as late as tomorrow, they might be on before that one.
Okay.
So if they make a list, you still gotta go hold it.
Okay, so the analysts say they can be online by tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay. So again, just to go forward, that, again, this is the first time many of us are seeing what bills are on the list. So if we were going to request an amendment for any of those bills, we do need a little bit of,
That's
generally
fair.
a day, I
And-
guess,
and
could
if-
get it.
As you know, the way last week went, we ended up changing the whole schedule this week, and
Yeah, no, this week there was enough time. My apologies for not getting it done on time, but just, one day we would have to get our amendments in
Okay.
place.
all right, that's a good point. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
Are we ending now?
Yeah, I think we're done with the voting, so we can close down the